Hey everyone, Josh Verlin here from City of Basketball Love, trying something new out in the COVID era. Probably a little too late for us to get into Zoom recordings, but we're doing it anyways. Joined today by Widener head coach, associate athletic director Chris Carideo. Chris, thanks so much for being my guinea pig today.
No problem, Josh. I really appreciate you having me on. Don't
So,
don't have any problem being a guinea pig. Whatever you want to do, this works for me.
hey man, just happy to talk some basketball again. We're talking, for people who don't know, you're one of 6 schools in the MAC Commonwealth that's going to attempt to play some basketball games. First game's coming up in about a week against I think Stevenson, if I'm remembering correctly. But let's go back 12 months. You guys come off a 19-win season, and then everything shuts down. I mean, what's the last 12 months been like for you and your program?
Yeah, I think like many, it's been a lot of uncertainty. Obviously everything is spearheaded by the university itself in terms of, what you can do with your team. And Widener, made it very apparent in the spring that they were taking the virus seriously. They sent everybody home. I forget the exact date. I want to say like March 9th or 10th. And we were basically not back on campus or allowed really back on campus unless for an emergency or, here or there, until the 23rd of January. So I think I calculated, I counted on my calendar. I think it was 322 days from the day I saw my guys in our Baruch ECAC game till we were allowed to practice on January 23rd. So almost a full calendar year.
I mean, so what? Sorry, keep going.
Yeah, I mean, and then I don't mean to cut you off, but and then that time between then and there's so much to peel back on. I mean, Zoom calls and communicating and finishing recruiting and keeping your guys engaged and certainly keeping them engaged academically. And, are you going to return as a full-time student? Are you going to take a gap year? Are you thinking about getting a master's program so that you can use that extra year of eligibility that the NCAA is providing for you? Are we going to practice or play at all? So all that kind of unfolded. And I would not say that it was easy because we were getting, we were on pace to do phases in the fall, and then we had a spike at Widener, and then we peeled back from that, and we didn't have anything in the fall. So it's been a challenging time, but the last 10 practices have been fun to be back on the floor.
I mean, Division III programs, Division III coaches, you guys aren't really allowed to work with your team much in the off season anyways. So when it comes down to the fall and then that spike happens and you're not able to have the fall practices that you might have thought you were hoping to, is it just doing more of what you would have been doing over the summer anyways? Is it a modified plan because guys aren't with each other? How did that change things?
Well, yeah, in Division III, the first 6 or 7 weeks on campus is really about your team and your captains and kind of them giving them the reins to kind of be leaders and organize their weight room time and organize their pickup games. And, you can only oversee from afar in terms of, is everybody getting their compliance forms in? Is everybody doing this or that and getting off on the right track academically? So you can't do anything on the floor with them, but they miss out on that time, right? So we have 6 freshmen that didn't play at all with their teammates until January 23rd this year, so they miss out on that time. And I think that's just an important time for them, as students and as athletes and as college basketball players, they miss out on that time. So, and then the fall semester, you're typically October 15th through December 15th. I mean, you're 2 months, you could play 8, 9, 10 games, you could have 40 practices, so it's, they missed out on all that. And, so now it's just nice, to have something. Every day, there's that black cloud hanging over us, though, a little bit. We've been great. Our kids have been great. We were testing 3 times a week, and we've been good to this point. So we just take every day as kind of a blessing and a chance to actually get on the floor and get some work in.
I guess what I was trying to get at, though, is in those, certainly they missed a lot of time in the fall. And as you said, all those practices and then the games they would have had in November and December. But in terms of, what you were able to do with them, what were you able to do with them? What was your typical week in terms of engagement with your team, as in October and November went on?
Well, by the time we got to the fall, we kind of reduced our Zooms team meetings to like once every 2 weeks. The kids were Zoomed out, with classes and everything else. I mean, they just, we tried to do it at a time that everybody had nothing going on, and we didn't try to exceed more than an hour. And we did some team exercises, just to kind of get to know each other a little bit, because it is a new team. Even though we have a lot of guys back. There's still 6 new faces on our team, a new assistant coach. So we were trying to kind of just get to know each other a little bit, what we would be off the floor, some team building stuff. Um, you know, and everybody came to the meetings with another joke or two, or just something to lighten the mood, and that's basically it. I mean, a lot of the fall too, from a coaching standpoint, is recruiting, and that was very, very limited. So, you're doing a lot of stuff via internet and films and those kind of things. And, so it was very, very, very quiet, to say the least. So, I mean, that's really all we could do. That's really all we could do. And that, some of the guys were allowed to be on campus to start the semester. And then when we had that spike, a lot of people just went home and finished the semester at home, just to be safe. So to answer your question, it was very limited. It was very limited. It was Zoom, like what we're all doing, what we're doing now. Right. That's basically what it was.
So, as you said, you guys are now in practices. You got, a couple weeks now under your belt. You're in your 16th season, I believe now, Widener. Obviously, over that time, you start to build up an expectation of like, here's what the team should look like first day of practice. Here's what you'd hope they look like 2 weeks into practice. Obviously, this isn't a normal year. How have you had to readjust your expectations of what these practices and what your team is going to look like, during these competitive months?
I went into it very open-minded, knowing that each individual person on my team has their own personal circumstance behind the pandemic, behind quarantine. Some of my kids' families were very serious about it. Some of my kids' families maybe weren't, because they didn't have people with underlying conditions and those types of things. So I was very open-minded when I went into our first practice and our first 10 practices, honestly, and I still am. So I wasn't prejudging guys that were maybe more out of shape than other guys. And honestly, our first 2 practices were, we did a little bit of drill work, maybe 10, 15, and we just let them play. Pick up. We organized the teams for them, and, just kind of let them have fun, because they haven't had a chance to really do that. And I didn't, honestly, at that moment, didn't know how long our practices would last. We were one positive test from being put on pause for 2 weeks, and then who knows, what the university would have decided then. Obviously it's been great so far, so good. But, so that's been my approach. The more we get into it, the more the competitor comes out, though. So the more like, oh, we want to tighten this up and we want to tighten that up. And, the kids are now able to come down and get extra work in during the day with my assistant coaches, so they can get their feet back under them and kind of get some rhythm into their shots. And just started up the weight room this week, was allowed to get in. So we're taking baby steps. And then I look at the calendar, I'm like, oh, we'll be playing a week. That's great. But like, it is what it is. We know that we're not going to be completely ready physically, emotionally, certainly X and O's wise, no way. But it's, I'm keeping an open mind, because, we do have one young man in quarantine right now, and it was only because he was in direct contact with somebody who had it. And fortunate for us, he's been testing negative all week. So we're hoping that he stays negative. But the mental health part of it is big. He's by himself in his room while the rest of his teammates are practicing. So, that part of it is on my mind too. So it's been different. And I think I'd like to think that my approach from a coaching staff standpoint, is we're just trying to keep it light, keep it exciting and fun and competitive. But at the same time, we are competitors. And I know when I get in that game next Thursday, God willing, we get there, I'm going to be a competitor. I'm going to want to win, and we'll just, we'll deal with those 2 hours as they come. But so that's kind of been our approach, and we'll stick with it for the next 6 weeks. Hopefully we can get through that, so we can get to next fall and circle back to this time and be like, hey, we learned at least this part of it. Let's, sharpen our skills a little bit and get a little tighter on certain things. So.
Yeah, I mean, how much are you looking at these 10 games as their own season versus like something of a tune-up for next year? And I guess part of that is how many of your seniors do you expect to have back, but where is that balance between like, there's no postseason this year, there's only so much you can get out of it, like you said, got to think about next year, but there still are seniors this year. Where's that balance come in?
Yeah, we currently have one senior, Jared Peters. Okay. He is in deep thought of getting a master's degree. So there's a good chance he'll be back in the fall. He hasn't made that full commitment yet. But the rest of the team is back, and that's, 16 guys along with Jared makes 17. So we are looking at it from a big picture standpoint. Where can this team be in 12 months from now? Let's, what can we kind of put building blocks in now so that we can, I guess the other good part of this is that we do have access to our team until exams start this May. So even if this shortened season ends, in the third week of March, we can still spend the month of April with them on the floor, which we've never been able to do before. And we won't kill them. It'll just be, a couple days a week. Let's get in there and, resharpen our minds on what we were trying to do. So we do have some extra time, which is nice that we don't typically get. So yeah, that is on our minds. And I've asked my coaches there, like, let's try to have a big picture approach to this and not, small mindedness, because the season is 10 games and, they haven't decided that there's going to be a conference tournament yet. They're dangling it, maybe top 4 seeds, maybe just top 2 play for a championship. They haven't decided, but either way, regardless of that, I would be, if you told me 2 months from now that we got 10 games in and 60 practices, I think I would be ecstatic. The kids would be ecstatic and be a great foundation for our team specifically moving forward. So I think the good thing about Widener is there is plenty continuing education, continual grad school opportunities on our campus. So if any of our young men want to take advantage of that extra year, they can do that. And that's an added plus for us for sure.
Not to get too much off topic here, but I know the concept or the idea of having Division III coaches and teams get more access to their team in the offseason, similar to the way Division I programs do, is starting to come up. I've seen it discussed on social media and such. Where are you on that? Do you think that would be a good idea? Do you expect that to happen at some point?
I think it's be a tremendous idea, and I don't think it should be abused. I don't think it's something that as coaches we're looking for 10 hours a week, which I think, some maybe Division I schools get. I mean, we're talking about just a couple of days a week for an hour, just to spend some time on the floor with them, just to say, hey, look, this is where you development is. This is what you need to work on. Now work on it. We don't need to be out there with them doing all those things because they are Division III athletes. And we understand that, academics and those type of things go first. And a lot of guys on my team are doing other activities and other things, which we encourage them to do. But I would love it. Just the interaction, with your team. And as a former player in college a long time ago, but I would have loved it because I think that, I didn't care any less just because I was a Division III player about my career or my improvement. I cared just as much as my friends that were playing Division I, except I had no access to my coaches, and I think that just that little interaction, even if it's, like I said, 3 hours a week, and you break them up in the group, no more than 4 guys at a time, like that's fine. Like that'd be fine. I think there's a lot of advantages to that. And it helps you kind of monitor them and see how they are, see how they're doing, not just basketball wise. Like you can spend some time with them on the court and just kind of get to feel where they're at, and I think that's an important piece. I'm all for it, but I don't want to abuse it. I don't think we need an enormous amount of time to do whatever we want. I think it needs to be limited and monitored, but I do think that there is a lot of value in it for sure.
Do you expect it to happen?
I hope so. I can't say that I see any traction that it would or wouldn't. I know it's been talked about a lot, especially on social media. So I don't have any like inside information that like it's going to happen, but I know that a lot of small colleges are getting that experience now because of the COVID rules. And I can tell you that if we get to April and we do that, our student athletes now are going to start really going like, this is amazing. Like, why wouldn't we be able to do this before? So it might gain a little more traction then. Because in April, we don't see our kids typically. Like it's
right.
You see them coming in and out of gym and lifting and they stop by our office and stuff like that. But, on the floor, anything organized, like, no. And we don't, as coaches, like we don't think workouts during April. We work back on our season and we think about recruiting, right? We're finalizing recruiting. So, if we were able to put a workout together for 4 guys for half an hour, I think we'd all enjoy
that. For sure. It's certainly an abrupt end of the season for you guys whenever it does happen. So yeah, let's look at this year. You guys are playing 10 games, 6 teams in the MAC Commonwealth. You guys, Albright, Arcadia, Lebanon Valley, Messiah, and Stevenson. So a bunch of area programs. What was that process like? Was it just athletic directors talking November? I know there's just been talks between a lot of schools, coaches, ADs, conference commissioners happening in November, December, January. What was that like from your point of view as that was all going on?
Yeah, well, it starts with the university presidents, right? They collaborated quite a bit in the fall. And then they collaborated again in December. I think it was like 8th or 9th. And they decided, okay, we're going to move forward with winter sports on an abbreviated schedule. We don't know specifics yet. And then presidents were going to meet again January 8th or 9th after the holiday, after the new year, and then make a decision on if it was going to happen. And then they would relay that to the athletic directors, and then the athletic directors would relay it to us. So, I don't want to say we were in the dark, but we just knew that there was a lot of layers to peel back if it was going to happen. Game day operations, and how is it going to work, and how's testing going to work, and yada yada yada. So but it all unfolded kind of timely. We were all getting prepared for a yes, because we needed to be. And then when it came down that they were going to put abbreviated schedules again, there was a little scrambling. And I think I can only speak for Widener, but our administration, our athletic department did a great job of, just doing our meetings and getting our stuff together. And this is how we're going to test, and this is how we're going to run practices, and these are protocols, and, X amount of players in the locker room at once, and they can't be all in at once. And it just goes on and on and on and on and on. And it all just kind of came together, and the schedule didn't come out until we started on the 23rd. I don't think the schedule came out till maybe February, late January, early February. So, and again, the coaches that were on the committee to do the schedule had a challenge in itself, because, there was time for teams to opt out. Teams did opt out. Like I said, we have 6.5. So Alvernia is going to play 6 games, but they're not starting class until I think this week. So they can't compete until the end of February. So there was just so many moving parts. But a huge kudos to the conference and to the committee who just was able to put something together. And once we saw it like pen to paper, and then there it was on the screen, like, wow, this is really there. Like these games are really happening. And, the back-to-back concept seems to be the college basketball model, because you're playing against the same opponent back-to-back. And so, we're keeping our fingers crossed that, everybody can stay healthy and we can get there. And the experience can be something that the kids can enjoy, at least, and look back on and be like, hey, that was worth it, and so same with the coaches. So, we're still going through growing pains with it. Honestly, Josh, like the first 2 weeks of testing, like, oh, we didn't see this coming, so we got to be able to do this. And, oh yeah, what are we going to do on game day when this occurs? Where are we going to put the officials? Where are we going to do this? We're going to. So there's still some things. And I think once we get through the first weekend of games, we'll probably still have some things we got to tighten up. But, I just think a lot of credit to the conference and to the schools that are opting in to make something for their kids,
I know you said you guys are testing 3 times a week. Is that standard with all the other programs that you'll be playing? And then what's your guys' living situation? And do you have any idea what the other schools, are they doing sort of bubbles with their teams? Are their kids going home, not going home? Any idea? Or is that just totally different between the schools?
Well, I know the mandate is you have to be tested 72 hours prior to competition, negative tests, obviously. I can't speak for all the other institutions, how many times they're testing a week. I can't. I know for Widener specifically, we're testing every Monday, Wednesday, Friday, rapid tests. And on Wednesdays, it's a rapid test and a PCR test. So, so they're covering all their bases there. My kids are, half are living on campus in college, in dorms, single rooms. I have another half that live off campus in houses they're renting. Are we in a bubble? Not necessarily in a bubble at Widener, but our team has been instructed to keep their circle small, be vigilant. Let's spend the next 6 or 7 weeks together. It's basically schoolwork, practice, eat, repeat. And that's kind of the way we've been kind of telling them, if you want this, and it's a huge sacrifice for any student athlete right now at a college campus at any level, even greater than before, right? To like stay within the realm of what they're doing, because just one deviation, right? Just one gathering off campus can throw a wrench in it, not just for you or for your team, but for other teams,
Right.
So I get it's tough. I mean, I put myself in the kids' shoes, and it's got to be a difficult situation, but at least they have basketball, right? So their mental health is a little bit better, we hope, that they're not stuck on a college campus and have nothing. Like they get, we didn't practice, I think, till 8 o'clock at night. And most of the 8 o'clock practices are not very good, right? They're just because the kids are checked out by 8 o'clock at night, right? They want to homework, lay in bed, whatever. But it was so spirited, and kids were like, wanted to be there because that is their social life right now. Like that is their outlet. And they were just like, was telling my coach, like, I just can't really believe how into it they are right now. But I appreciate why they are, and
Right.
it's been so yeah, it's just a different life for a college kid right now. So we're not in a bubble, but we're asking them to kind of live in a little bubble, so to speak, and be responsible and vigilant. And the sacrifices that you have to make right now are these. And they've all been great with it so far. And obviously across colleges nationwide, kids have been good with it, because there's teams on pause, but over 90% of the colleges are still active and still playing. So, which you got to imagine is tough to do as a college kid.
Yeah, I would imagine. I mean, certainly you would hope that your kids would take it more seriously, especially when you're like 1 week away from a game. It's one thing if you're just sort of in the, well, if you try to stay safe, then maybe we can try to play some games. But when you're in that, hey, there's games 1 week away, we're right there, you're so close. Yeah. You would hope that they could just be like, all right, I can skip a party. I can, not go over to that girl's place when she texted me that one night,
Yep.
So yeah, let's get to your team a little bit. 19-8 last year, best season for you guys in quite a while. 5-year top 7 back. How do you feel about this group?
Well, I mean, I love them to death, this group, just because I know what they're going through and what they've been going through, aside from basketball, because of the sacrifices they're making. But from a basketball talent standpoint, I think we're very talented. For us, I'm all the other teams in our league are talented as well. I just think for us and where we've been, we have a lot of complement players right now, as we don't have all the same player, which I think is good for balance, especially in our conference. We are going to miss Connor Lafferty and Elijah Boyd, 2 seniors that graduated last year that were 1,000-point scorers, and they both brought different things to our team. But we do have quite a few upperclassmen now. We have 6 juniors and a senior. And those guys have been in the program, and they've been really good with the way they're leading by example, and the way they've been practicing and kind of laying out the rules for the team. And our sophomores are, they're a year older. Stephen Matlack was a freshman who played a lot last year, but the other guys that were freshmen and now sophomores have been in the program, so they know what their expectations are. And our 6 freshmen we like them. We think they're very talented, and they have kind of blended in nicely. So, if this was a traditional year and we had 25 games and a regular conference schedule, I would be optimistic, but I also would be realistic too, right? This is still a new team. Yes, we have 6 of our top 8 guys that played last year back. We had a nice run, but we didn't win a conference championship. We did falter at the end. We didn't finish the job, so we got to learn from that piece of it. And hopefully we can see some growth there from those young men. And I think these games this year will definitely let us see those things. Games reveal character. Games reveal things. Like, practice is one thing, but as covering, coaches see guys do certain things in practice, but when a game, the lights come on, things change a little bit. So I'm anxious to see those things, so we have a little bit more of a vision of where our team is headed. But I'm excited. I am excited about our group. I'm excited from 1 to 17 what each guy can bring. And I love where our talent is, because it's not all the same player. We have a lot of pieces we can move around. So I'm excited about that.
Yeah, and covered you guys a couple times last year, and Connor Lafferty, Elijah Boyd, obviously 2 tremendous players for you guys. As you said, 1,000-point scorers, all league type players, and also both very versatile. Both did a lot, as great basketball players at any level tend to be. They're not just monodimensional. They're doing a lot of different things for you guys. Who on this roster do you see, even if they're not, I'm not saying who's going to be Connor Lafferty and Elijah Boyd this year, but of the younger guys, is there anybody that you see developing that sort of overall versatility that you liked out of those 2 guys?
Well, we tend to recruit that way, because we do want versatility from our players. Every conference is different. Our conference is really about the versatile player, right? The 6'3", 6'4" player that can guard 5 positions, that can put it on the floor, that can shoot the 3. Typically in our conference, the team that has a lot of players that can do that puts themselves in a position to win it. So Connor was from that mold, and Elijah was from that mold. And I could go right down our roster right now. And I mean, I can tell you the 6 returners that we have coming back, AJ Sawyers and Kenny Lewis and Stephen Matlack and Jared Peters, and, all the way down the line, those guys, they're all versatile, right? They can all guard 1 through 5, and they can all make a shot and step out on the perimeter and do different things and guard different positions. Patrick Holden is our starting point guard. He's 5'8", So we do what we can to keep him out of harm's way in terms of switching onto a 6'7" guy. But he, he can score, he can make shots. He scored 2,000 points in high school. So, he's versatile in that sense.
Sure.
And then guys that haven't played a lot, but we look forward to seeing what they can do now. Like you brought up Bo before we had this conversation. Like Bo is another young man that we think has a lot of versatility. I think all our freshmen have versatility. Yet some guys are 6'6", 6'7", but they can shoot the three too. So it's really about trying to be versatile for us rather than, some conferences in Division III at our conference, like they're looking for a 6'8" big to just take up space on the block. And that's not what we typically do. And that's not what our league really is. Or they're looking for like, a shooter who that's his only job. Like your job is to stretch the floor and be on that side with the big and make you be guarded. Like we want guys that can do that, but also can put it on the floor. So you might sacrifice like a great shooter for a good shooter, but that good shooter can put the floor in a little bit and he can develop while he's with you, which is exactly what Connor Lafferty did, exactly what Elijah Boyd did. Like they played as freshmen and we recruited them because they were versatile, but they weren't great at any one thing. They were just good at a lot of things. And then Connor and they took that next step as seniors where they could really score the ball and they could really defend and they could really drive it and they could guard 5 positions. And so that's what we kind of look at when we're recruiting. So to answer your question, I think our roster from top to bottom is that way. And we have struggled against teams that are built differently, like in one game situations that have a 6'8" guy who's just a dominant big. And we just don't have anybody that can guard them because we're just not used to guarding guys like that. We're used to our league. We recruit for our league. And out of league, we just adjust. It's just the way it goes. You play 16 teams in your league, 16 games in your league, and the goal is to win your conference championship so you can get to the NCAA tournament. And then you worry about that when you get there, so.
The one senior, as you did mention, Jared Peters, second leading scorer last year, really tough all-around combo guard. Really like watching him play. With all this craziness that's going on, the one senior is always going to be special. The teams that have that one senior, he's always going to have a little extra on his shoulders. But in this crazy world, do you try to make things easier for him? Do you hope that he takes on a little more responsibility? Do you talk to the juniors? Because that's a lot for one kid to handle.
It is. And if you know Jared's a very, very quiet young man, right? He leads by example. He speaks up very rarely, but when he does, the guys on the team know that he's serious. So that's another thing that we're looking at, right? So we're putting a lot on Jared, but we've also talked to the rest of our guys about leadership, and this is an opportunity for leadership. And we do have a lot of juniors, and we want to see who's going to become another leader, right? So it's almost like we're looking at this time too as like a trial for who's going to be our next captain or captains as we go into the spring and next fall with this same team. So we're not in a rush to like name more captains for Jared alongside, because Jared was a captain last year as a junior. So he understands the role. And I think that our upperclassmen have helped. And there are even some sophomores that have stepped up and led by example and those types of things. So it's nice to see them, kind of develop those skills with their teammates. I feel like sometimes naming captains too early can be a detriment, because then some other guys maybe feel scorned by it, or the guys you name captain or elected captain, maybe they're just not ready for that role, especially since we haven't been together for so long. So we're just letting it kind of unfold and see how guys handle the leadership part of it. I think we have a good culture. I know that name is thrown around a lot and abused, but I think we have a good culture. So I think the guys on the team really care about each other and care about what we do and understand what our value system is. So we're kind of letting that kind of play out, but we are putting a lot on Jared by himself now, so.
All right. Widener men's basketball season gets underway 1 week from today, February 11th at Stevenson. Coach Chris Carideo, thanks so much for sitting down with us. Stay healthy, stay safe, have a good season out there. Best of luck, and we'll look forward to talking to you guys soon.
Thank you, Josh. Appreciate it.